tacking on such a toxic writer as the DWI bill, and that's my biggest concern. What Dank Autism means to us right now is that pot is legal to possess an ounce. What that means, nobody really knows. It does not mean you can go to a dispensary and buy it unless you have a medical authorization. It doesn't mean that you can smoke it in public, consume it in public. It doesn't mean that you can have it in your car. I think for most of us, the biggest change in our lives for Seattleites is going to be the business about cars. Because what the new law says is this. Impairment is no longer an issue for a drug DWI. For alcohol, they have to establish that you're impaired, and they've got some pretty good science that shows that at a certain level of alcohol in your blood, you are impaired. Now, there is no similar science for marijuana. In fact, there are some who say that cannabis really doesn't impair the experience of smoking. But in any event, what the law says is if you have 5 nanograms or more of active THC in your blood, you are guilty of DWI, unless you're under 21. In which case, if there is any measurable THC of any kind, active or not, you are DWI. Now, we're not just going to go picking people at random and testing for pot to see if you're pot DWI, but there are some things I think I can predict that we have to look out for. And the first is, I used to call it Steinborn's law, which is one law at a time. You only break one law at a time. And by that I mean this. The place where you're most vulnerable to being caught with pot nowadays is on the road in your car. Most of the misdemeanor pot busts that I see come out of traffic stops. So, despite the fact that it's not illegal for us to possess an ounce, when you possess that ounce in your car, you better put it in a mason jar. Baggies don't hold the smell bag. A mason jar is something that will hold the smell, and it better be in your trunk. Because when we get pulled over now for that, for whatever, for your tail light being out, for your, for your license plate light being dim, for your trailer wall obscuring your license plate, for your windshield being cracked, for touching the fog line, for touching the bike lane, any simple reason. If your car smells of pot, just because it's legal doesn't mean you're going to get away now. Because what's going to happen now is instead of being busted for possession of an ounce of pot, they're going to look to bust you for DWI. And it doesn't take much. If your car smells of pot, that's probably enough to get the train rolling. It is said that they have to have probable cause to take the next step and take your blood test, but the trouble with probable cause is there's really nothing about probable cause for pot that can't be fabricated by a police officer, and it's not really subject to review. His tongue was green, his eyes were watery, and he was trembling, he was slow to respond, he was staggering. Just the kind of stuff that a dishonest cop could make up and make it justify taking your blood. Everyone smelled it. So I think rule number 1 is you want to protect yourself from the new DWI rule. Don't smoke in your car. Don't let your car smell pot. Just because you're a patient. I mean, unfortunately, I think for patients in particular, this is a step backwards because other than driving, we're now pretty free to say, I got some pot here, it's only an ounce, and you can go fuck yourself if you don't like it. Although, let me back that up a little bit. I want to talk about attitude a little bit too, since we're here. Now that we are legal, and I see I'm already wandering around and digressing, but I wanted to happen. Now that we are legal, there is the temptation to stick it in people's faces. Not only is that bad manners, but it's not a good idea for a lot of reasons. I remember when I was a young lawyer, the judge pulled me into chambers and I did this meeting. He said, Jeff, he says, people already think lawyers are crazy. We don't want to give them any more evidence. And I think that can be said for us cannabis consumers as well. They already think we're nuts. Let's not give them any evidence. Let's let them believe that we are well-mannered and we deserve this liberalization of the law that's taking place. I'm inclined to let you folks ask me questions at this point rather than try to follow my training further. So let's hear some hands. I can answer your questions.
I seem to recall at some point that the Washington State courts upheld that just the knowledge that you're a medical cannabis patient alone is probably not ways to conduct a search. I remember reading an article on that. Is that true? In your experience?
I don't think so. That's a new one on me. But again, being a patient in your car is not something you necessarily want to disclose. If you're driving down the road and they pull you over, you disclose that when if they smell the pot, you got to deal with it. But again, you don't want to be admitted to having smoked or consumed anything in the last several hours, or you're going to be in trouble. But no, the ability to be a patient isn't probable cause. In fact, it's the fact that pot is now legal for medical and recreational reasons is going to change the nature of probable cause, because we're not quite sure how to deal with it. It used to be the smell of pot was probable cause, period. And now it's legal, we don't quite know where it's going to go. Sir?
That's my question. Is the smell of a probable cause? I mean, it's a legal substance now. Yeah, you got to come at another way of searching,
I think the cops are all scratching their heads over that. SPD has put out a bulletin saying the smell of marijuana is not probable cause anymore, at least unless you have reason to believe it's more than an ounce. Now, in a car, it's a different matter. In the car, it may well be probable cause to believe the driver is intoxicated. But outside of the car, the smell of probable cause is no longer, the smell of marijuana is no longer probable cause. Now, where that's going on down the road is the cops and the courts and the lawyers to try to work it out. Nobody knows. Again, don't put it in anybody's face. But things have improved a little bit in that department.
Separation between medical and the recreational courts now, or does medical still exist as is?
No changes to medical except you probably can't drive.
Correct. Okay, but the cultivate 45 and collective and all that stuff still exists?
You can still cultivate 45 plants in a collective garden. It's considered an affirmative defense. We're trying to make it legal. It's not legal yet. And the question that I get asked every day, here's the answer to it. If you want to make some money in the pot business, you're going to have to break the law. Maybe a year from now that'll be different, although I'm skeptical that anybody's going to sign up to sell pot for $500 an ounce when they can buy it for $200. But at the moment, if you want to make any money in the pot business, you got to break the law. For some, I encourage you to do that.
That was a perfect precursor. My question is that at any point do you think that yes, now you can have an ounce as a recreational user? Are they going to say, well, great, where did you get that ounce? Is that going to be a new avenue to, it's you're not busted for possession, you're busted for illegal delivery?
I wouldn't be surprised to see that happening among some of the more aggressive cops. And the answer would be, I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that question. And there's always, you can always fall back on my favor, which is I tell my clients not to talk to the police. That water unused, I tell my clients not to talk to the police, keep your mouth shut. And I tell them that when they're dealing with the police, they should tell the cop, look, my lawyer told me to shut up, and he also said, if I don't take his advice, he doubles the price. They get a little giggle, sometimes it breaks the tension with the cop, but at the very least they understand that we're talking dollars and cents here now, and the lawyer told you to shut the fuck up, and you're probably going to. That's the best way to handle that one.
I'm curious, with the new 5 nanograms, how much is that? Like if I'm medical and I'm smoking all the time, is it just going to be illegal for me to drive ever again?
Well, we think so. We really haven't done enough studies to know for sure. But it looks like if you're a regular user, and your last consumption is at even, you're still going to need 5 nanograms in the morning. But we don't have it varies from person to person. But certainly if you are a regular heavy user, the odds are you're going to be showing that 5 nanograms long after there's any impairment. And that's something we're going to have to work out. I'm not sure there's any way to get a concrete answer for each individual, except maybe for you to go get your own blood test. But certainly if you're chronic user, you sure as hell don't want to give it one reason to test your blood.
Is there any way of telling how long like that you smoke or anything like that?
No, there isn't. No,
John, can I answer that?
Steve.
There is a study from the National Institute on Drug Abuse that says that active THC will stay in the blood for up to 30 days from last use. But all of us who are patients are going to be using every day. There's absolutely no way for you to determine, because you're not going to feel impaired. I wake up, I had my blood tested, I wake up 4 times the legal limit every morning. So, you know, what is that saying? And by the way, I think Jeff will corroborate this. They will be adding something else to the law, just like they have with alcohol. You know, now if you're at twice the legal limit, if you're at 1.6, the criminal penalties will increase greatly. I don't know what they're going to do if you're 4 or 5 or 6 times the legal limit. You just smoked some hash oil, and now you're driving home, and you could be at 300 or 400 nanograms per milliliter. And what are they going to do to you then? This is really a problem. We filed the lawsuit, my organization filed the lawsuit on Monday, you'll read about it this week, to overturn I-502 because the per se DUID was not on that ballot, and that is illegal.
I read that lawsuit, by the way, and it looks to me like it's got some legs, and it's interesting. You know, Art was talking about it earlier. He said, I got some technicalities here. Well, as my mother used to say, the Constitution is not a fucking technicality, and these are constitutional issues, so there's some hope there. Sir, your question.
So, in the end, what do you end up?
What, refusing to take the blood test? It's a hard call because if you refuse, you lose your license for a year automatically. And you're probably going to lose automatically anyhow. So the truth is, a bunch of us DWI lawyers are putting our heads together and trying to figure out what the right answer is to that question. I know as to alcohol, what the going wisdom is you don't refuse the breathalyzer. As to cannabis, some folks are saying you don't refuse it, some folks are saying you do. And I can't give you a consensus into that one yet. Hopefully, as we study this and how this law unfolds in practice, we'll be able to give you some better answers pretty soon. Sorry.
Okay, so I was on federal property about 6 months ago, and I was actually at a lake of national park, and I got in trouble through the federal government. I had to go to federal court, and that rigmarole. Is that going to change at all where it's with you in parks or whatever? If you still get in trouble for it? Or?
The short answer is no. It's not going to change until the feds decide to change the rule. And that rule is really, I read there's a place on the Olympic Peninsula where you drive, you're on the state highway, and you drive through a federal park, drive in and out of the park while you're still on the highway. And while you're on that highway, if you have a firearm in your vehicle, you're creating a federal crime. And you're also creating a federal crime if you got the cannabis in your car when you drive through. So the answer is no, they're not likely to change things, but around here they may back off some on the enforcement. I know the woman in Western Washington who prosecutes all of this in areas of she really thinks she's got more important stuff to prosecute to the pot cases. That's right. They have to have probable cause to arrest you. And then in certain circumstances, they can get a court order to enforce it. In other circumstances, it's consensual. But as I said, probable cause can be fabricated by a police officer, and that fabrication is really not subject to review. Steve?
Yeah, let me answer that a little bit further. Built into the fiscal note on 502 is $2 million to go to the Washington State Patrol. They are going to they want to train all of their officers to be what's called a DRE, or drug recognition expert. And what has changed now is he signed a statement by running DREs going, you look stoned to me, without prima facie evidence for probable cause. He's just got to look at you. They can't get in your house without a warrant to look for your pot. Now we're going to be able to take your blood without a warrant based on the state's of a police officer, and that's scary.
In a way, it makes you think of they've changed their focus. The government, especially the federal government, has seen that they are going to succeed in prohibition and prohibiting us from using cannabis. It was like they got Al Capone with the tax laws, not the criminal laws. They're going to try to get us to the driving laws. Drug driving is the new crusade, and in the case of cannabis, as most of us know, it's really a red herring. There is not a cannabis drug driving problem on our highways in this country.
So I'm so confused about with medical you can be as young as 18, but recreational 21, how does that reconcile then with the zero tolerance for under 21? Does the medical patient get a break for that?
No, a medical patient under 21 simply can't legally drive, period.
Another question. There's a recreational use of 502. You have up to 5 areas. It doesn't really say what happens if you are growing under 5 plants, but if you're over 5 plants, they're going to try to seize your property.
That's right. The statute, the forfeiture statute says that anything in excess of 5 plants being grown is indicated that you're growing for commercial purposes, and they can take your real estate or your equity in your real estate. As a practical matter, until you get to commercial level, they don't take your property. They don't take your property for 6 plants or 7 plants, but if you get enough so you're making some money, then your real estate is in jeopardy. There's an exception for medical grows, but you know, if you got your medical grow and you turn it into some cash in your pocket, you've gone beyond the bounds of the medical exception. And you do risk having your real estate confiscated. Steve?
Yeah, one more thing, I'm going to get out of here and meet you back over there. We just came from a meeting, our organization, the Cannabis Action Coalition, has got a piece of legislation that will finally change the medical marijuana law in the state of Washington. We need everybody's support. It just does one simple thing. We need a lot more things done, but this one thing we need more than anything else now. And this law, instead of having just an affirmative defense for patients, if you are obeying the law under this new statute, you have protection from arrest and prosecution, which means they can't constitute a shit anymore. Okay? They cannot just tear down your garden, steal all your equipment without suffering the consequences. It just does that one thing, but that one thing will change your life a whole lot.
Can you say the initiative name that?
It's on an initiative. The Washington Medical Cannabis Patient Protection Act, and it won't have a number. We're talking to Bill next month. We've got a sponsor. Oddly enough, the first sponsor, ex-cop Republican from the Tri-City. Yeah, well, hey, you know what? We have to, if we're going to win this, we have to win this on a bipartisan basis. Roger Goodman has come out in the newspaper saying that he and Jeannie Colwell plan to over-regulate medical marijuana in the next session of the legislature. What idiot says over-regulate? Not tightly regulate, not strictly regulate, but over-regulate. So we're going to need everybody's help to make sure that that doesn't happen, because they intend to do it to us this year.
As you can see, these reforms are being accomplished by people who don't understand cannabis and who don't understand the criminal justice system. And it's up to those of us who do understand one or the other or both and try to have some input with these people before they fuck things up even worse.
What do you think is going to happen if the feds go after your Washington and Colorado at the state level, like nasty letters to the governors? I mean, what's going to happen if they push back, in your opinion?
then we'll be left with a toxic DWI law and the right to possess an ounce of pot if you can find it somewhere, and nothing else. Which may be what we get.
The state of Washington getting into the pot business, I don't really see it getting very far.
I'm not going to hold my breath for that to happen at this point. Nor do I want it to happen. But of course, we're spoiled here in Seattle. In Seattle and King County, we've got the best of all worlds. And any changes couldn't probably be for the worse because we've worked it out pretty well here. And lo and behold, the world hasn't stopped spinning, has it? And we've got 250,000 people in the park smoking pot in the summertime. We got more dispensaries than Starbucks. And the world is still spinning, and maybe the rest of the world should take a look at that before they start talking about over-regulation. Any more questions?
I understand that we can have an output pot, but can we, how much household do we have?
They had that all worked out.
You know, it's in the statute, and I cannot give you the straight answer on that, because the amount of oil, as I recall, seems like a huge amount considering how much more concentrated hash oil is. 72 ounces, that's it. Well, think about that. I mean, 72 ounces of hash oil is the equivalent of a couple of truckloads full of cannabis. But once again, you get these laws written by people that don't understand what they're doing, then you get silly stuff like that. Besides, who wants 72 ounces of hash oil?
This guy.
Excuse me, I'm a J boy myself.
That's 2 years worth of out for me. Any more?
What can we do to fight back? I mean, I think going to the state liquor board hearings,
And people should pay attention, but I think Mr. Sarich's bill that he's got going is probably the best next step, is at least to carve out some rights for patients. And, you know, let the state bumble along trying to license stores that will sell pot for $500 an ounce, and we'll see where that gets us. Meanwhile, we got to protect ourselves, and I think what Mr. Sarich has got going is the best train on the tracks right now.
Well, it's safe. Well, it's fairly safe to grow here medically in King County. Go to a Southern County and try it. And have the police figure out what you're doing. They're not so gentle there.
No, in fact, all over the state there are problems. It's really mostly Western Washington and the more urban Eastern Washington counties. But a lot of law enforcement people are having a hard time accepting that cannabis is not a crime anymore. You know, for example, I think the prosecuting attorney in Yakima County has said, I believe it's he, said that your pot has to come from a state licensed store, it's not legal. You know, that's the kind of crap we're going to have to work out. But obviously, even as toxic as this bill was, the public supported it by a vast majority. The politicians are just going to have to get on the train. Sir?
All right, get back. What about public use of cannabis now that it's
Well, the law prohibits it, but it's just a citation or $50 fine or something. But
walking and smoking down the street?
yeah, you know, well, in Seattle, nobody gives a shit. In other places, people may pick on you for it. But yeah, walking down the street and smoking is public use. It was prohibited.
So it's kind of like public use of alcohol?
I think so, yeah, although, you know, alcohol doesn't stink up the place like pot does. And we do have to be, you know, aware of the feelings of those among us who don't like pot, you know. We can't stick it in their faces or we're going to pay the price for it in the long run. It's bad manners besides. I don't advocate bad manners.
Okay.
Okay.
How long before we get a chance to maybe put up another initiative or clean up this bill?
Well, you can put up another initiative anytime, but this bill itself can't be modified for 2 years.
How is the non-smoking law previously had? It's like, say you want to go to the coffee shop.
As I understand that it's identical. Tobacco smoke and pot smoke are considered the same in terms of public smoking rules. Am I right about that, Steve?
No.
Yeah, yes.
So there's no way ultimately more people could smoke.
That's right. And you're around the 20th guy to ask me that this week. So obviously, people are thinking about something like that, and you know, sooner or later it may happen.
What if it had a big outdoor smoking area like this place does?
Well, it's the private events, you know, and private club, private.
They didn't bother the High Times cannabis catch.
Will you pick me, please?
But this is Seattle.
What is your retainer?
I don't take retainers.
Thank you.
If you got my number, you can call me up. It doesn't mean I won't take your money, but I don't take
I'll be
retainers.
happy to give it to you.
Steve.
There's going to be a lot more questions coming up. Like I said, this week you'll read in the newspapers about us trying to overthrow 502 and get rid of the per se DUID. But there are going to be a lot of things like the Patient Protection Act and a lot of new news coming up. So we're launching the Cannabis Action Coalition TV channel. If you go to Facebook and look for Cannabis Action Coalition, we'll announce that the TV channel will probably be up in another week to 10 days. And we'll put on regular news shows, and we'll even take call-in questions, and he'll be one of the people answering questions. Aaron Pelly will be another one. Doug Hyatt will be another one. So you'll always be able to talk to an attorney and get the up-to-date news, because you're not going to get it in the mainstream press.
And it's super good that I just made a move. Kind of using my area a little bit over the last I moved out of Seattle. And, you know, there, my patient for I never had police officers in my home. The only thing that was my kids. You know, but I just moved into Auburn, and I've heard rumors that Auburn police are a little bit different on the medical side. Do I have something to be concerned with?
I haven't had any Auburn cases, but I know Canada's good. Steve, you know some Auburn?
Yeah, I'm probably qualified to answer that one. We're the ones suing Kent right now. And we did win in a Kent courtroom because we didn't expect to win with a Kent judge hearing the case in Kent suing Kent. So we have bumped it now. We have a Supreme Court number. We're taking this to the Supreme Court, and we're going to get that thrown out. Okay? So all of these cities that are making up their own cannabis laws illegally are now going to suffer for this. But what Jeannie Cole Wells is going to try to do, and I promise you this, if we can't stop her, we stopped her last year, we have to stop her this year, she's going to try to pass legislation giving each of these cities the right to ban cannabis gardens in their cities, and we have to stop her. But that's the biggest agenda for the Association of Washington Cities right now, is to allow these cities and the counties. We could have 3 different laws. We could have a state law, a county law, and a city law, and you could be violating any one of them. We have to keep this just as a state law, or people in Yakima will never have the marijuana.
That's why when 502 was first proposed, I referred to it as the Full Employment for Lawyers Act. And that's what it's going to be for a while. So, but pay attention, these are exciting times. We have sort of legalized cannabis in Washington, which is pretty damn exciting. Woo! And even those of us who criticize that bill should do our best to make the good parts of it work, and we'll do our best to get rid of the jagged edges. I think we should all have that goal in mind.
For anybody that doesn't have a current defense, who do you have a list of kind of family? Do you have individuals? Or?
I think most of us lawyers who know how to do this will go anywhere in the state or anywhere in the country if you can afford to take our airfare. Yeah, but you can call me or Aaron or Douglas or go to the normal web page. Or call me. I'm easy to find.
You have to forfeit your second.
Yes. For 2 reasons. One. Oh, sorry. He asked if you have to forfeit your Second Amendment rights. And partly, it depends on how conservative you want to be. But there's 2 reasons. One, it is a federal felony to be a user of any drug, including cannabis, in possession of a firearm, period. Now, would that law stand a constitutional challenge? I don't know, but at the moment it is, it's 5-year felony. That's the first thing. The